Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for everybody who is present here. And we all can understand that real estate is one of the most important asset classes for everybody concerned here. Not apart from the individual, it also constitutes around 6% of the country's gross domestic product. It generates an employment of around 6 crore people. Banks, FIs, institutions combined has more than 20 lakh crore of exposure combined to this builder, home loan buyers, lab, etc. It supports approximately around 300 industries directly or indirectly. And most importantly, for concern between you and me, 30% of the household saving in country in India, it is all invested in the real estate asset class. Real estate sector, which was still grappling with demonetization, GST, RERA, COVID-19 must have added further fuels to this industry. Government of India has earlier announced rupees 25,000 crore fund to support this industry. This fund is named as Swami Investment Fund 1. And Irfan Kaji is the Chief Investment Officer of this fund. Swami Investment Fund, it is an AIF sponsored by Government of India. To complete, please now understand the line which I speak now. To complete the construction of stalled, affordable and mid-housing projects. This fund, the major objective is for the completion of the construction of stalled, affordable and mid-housing projects. This is a fund which is managed by SBI Caps, and Irfan Kaji is the Chief Investment Officer. Irfan Kaji, earlier in his earlier avatar with L&T Investment Infra and AIG Global Investment Group as well, he has invested in all the asset classes across the real estate. Irfan, I suppose you are one of the most sought after man in this industry right now, and I welcome you, sir, to this industry, to this seminar. Approximately around 300 participants has now joined, and we have got around 600 registrations for this event. So this is the type of response with Irfan that you can understand that the industry is waiting to hear from you. Welcome Irfan, and it is all over to you, Irfan. So you can just unmute yourself, Irfan.
Yeah,
yes,
so that's
Irfan. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Jyoti.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
The advantage of doing an online seminar, I guess, is the fact that I can see that I'm only talking to you right
now. No, you can always see the participants also there.
The fact that so I'm choosing not to see that. The fact that there are more people listening would be, slightly daunting, but I have a task to do. And, I'll try to match the fluency and the eloquent way in which you introduce the fund.
Yeah.
So in the absence of any other agenda, if I could just quickly sum up or give a very brief introduction of what the fund is.
Yes, so that would be great.
How far we've come since the announcement on November 6th, and then take as many questions as people are willing to ask.
Absolutely, sir. Fantastic.
Right. So just stepping back, and my apologies to whoever has attended any of my last calls. Right, I have nothing new to say in terms of the product I'm selling. It is still a fund for completion of stalled projects. It is something that was announced by the Honorable Finance Minister on November 6th, 2020. And, as is generally expected, there was a lot of skepticism, both amongst the financial community as well as also amongst developers, on just how quickly will, a policy announcement become a reality. And now we can state with confidence that it is not just a reality. This fund is up and running. We are, we have achieved significant progress and traction in the last 3-4 months. Almost on a scale of what most funds would achieve in 4-5 years. So we've gone that far ahead. This is a fund for completion of stalled, affordable and mid-income housing projects. We have defined the term affordable and mid-income. That term has now been reasonably well understood. So the 1.5 crore and 1 crore limit is, people educate us about it, right? So in case we get it wrong. So people are aware about that. So that's one. The fund is for completion of stalled projects. And we have, shouted on the rooftops that it is not just for projects that are stalled, but it's also for projects that are likely to be stalled. So, we are not a hospital treating stretcher cases. we are in fact, willing to step out and even help projects which would otherwise face an obstacle due to lack of funding. That can be sufficiently established. We are willing to fund those projects. So we are looking at projects that are stalled and likely to be stalled. We are looking at projects that are, in terms of color, brown rather than green. Projects that have sufficiently advanced, so at least 30% of the project is complete. And if you notice, both this 30%, the affordable and mid-income housing criteria, and the other criteria that the fund has, these are, significantly low hurdle rates. So the entire intention here is not to keep out most of the projects. The entire intention is to ensure that most of the projects qualify for funding. When we did a back study on the projects in the industry, we established that maybe 90% plus of the stalled units would qualify with the kind of qualifying criteria we've kept. The only other significant qualifying criteria apart from RERA registration would be the fact that we are looking at projects which are cash flow positive or net worth positive. And by that we mean, and again, that is something that we've communicated several times before, that the cost to complete the project should be less than all the inflows from sold inventory and unsold inventory, receivables from sold inventory, and so on, plus the cost of servicing our funding. So we are not looking at the cost to complete being less than all the debt in the project. So the available cash flows in the project might not be even sufficient to repay all the debt, but as long as it's sufficient to complete the construction with some left over to service our debt, we are okay with it. That's in terms of criteria. I think the single biggest factor that differentiates us from the other funds is we are not a regular private equity fund. In a lighter vein, I've always maintained that we are the most public private equity fund, but we are not a regular private equity fund. In so many ways, we are an impact private equity fund. We are looking at creating an impact in terms of relieving the pain that is being experienced by home buyers, while at the same time providing financial returns for our investors. And it's important to do both. While one is a social objective, the other objective ensures that money keeps flowing into the social objective. And that's why the other objective is important. In terms of progress, so while the fund was incorporated on November 6th, I'll just give you a timeline and quantitative numbers on where we are so far. We did the first closing on December 6th at 10,500 crores. Probably the fastest closing that has ever been achieved by a fund of this scale in India. That's one. We are also currently the largest real estate fund in the country. We have a reasonably huge team already. We have about 22 investment professionals working in my team. So it's a very large team. We have gone out of the way to ensure that deal flow happens to us from all possible channels. So we have been neutral to developers showing us deals, to financial consultants showing us deals. We have approached banks and lending agencies to show us deals. And therefore, as a result, the deal flow has been substantial. We have also revamped our website so that that will act as a conduit for deals into the fund. And most of the deals, in fact, have come to us from our website. Almost everything I say is out on the website. I would know it. We have authored it. And therefore, if you need a further clarification on any aspect of the fund, I would request you to visit sbicapventures.com. Not only have we have an audiovisual presentation there, we have frequently asked questions there, we have a brief on the fund. We also have the information format in which we want you to submit an application to us. And we have the email ID mentioned there, right? And the information format we specifically designed so that it can be filled in a matter of maybe 10-15 minutes for anyone dealing with a reasonably sized project. The idea is that we'll get a quick sense of whether the deal meets our parameters or not. And then immediately when you mail it to us, our team will get in touch with you and ask you more project specific questions to see how it will fit into our funding. All that done, we are now looking at 400 plus deals. We have already cleared about, so before I throw a number, let me just quickly mention that we have a 2-stage approval process. We have an initial IC approval, which is done on the basis of information made available to us by the developer. We follow that up with external due diligence. And after that, we have a final IC approval. And our job is limited to getting the final IC approval. That final IC approval might have certain conditions that the borrower will have to meet and so on. We have got initial IC approval for about 30 plus deals. We have got final IC approvals for about 6 deals. What is important to note is that between these two put together, right, in a day and age when people are wondering, when did we start and when did we proceed? I can say that almost 50% of the fund would be invested in the deals that we have already got either preliminary or final IC approval. So we are significantly ahead in our investment cycle. So that's one. With these deals, we hope to provide for the completion of almost 40,000 units, if I remember the number correctly. Just give me a second. Yeah. So with these deals, we would provide for the completion of almost, it's 40 plus, for almost 40,000 home units. The 6 deals where we've got final approval, so which means that we have done everything that we need to do. Money is available, but money will be disbursed according to site conditions. Currently, we have a lockdown, so disbursements do not happen. Money gets disbursed when certain critical approvals are met and so on. But that provides a solution to the completion of almost 5,000 homes. So that's how far we've come. In terms of the economics of the funding, a more involved discussion will mean that I would talk about the IRR. I would talk about how we treat the project, how we treat the lender. So in terms of IRR, we are looking at a 15% IRR. And the reason it's important to understand it's a 15% pay when able kind of an instrument. It does not have a monthly coupon or a quarterly coupon. So all the money is being used for the project only. And it's only after that the project is completed that money will start flowing back to the investor, that is the Swami Investment Fund. So in the initial phases, all the money, our money, as well as money from the project will be diverted, will be channeled into completion of the project. So that's important. What we'll also do is we are aware of the fact that there are underlying lenders who might not have the kind of long-term view that we have, right? So we are willing to look at on a case-by-case basis and share some of the revenues that are coming from receivables and sales into the project. So maybe 10-20% of those revenues could flow to the underlying lender. Now, while 10-20 might look like a small number, appreciate the fact that while they are getting 10-20%, we are getting 0. The remaining 80 or 90% is being channeled back into the project. And we are providing all the funding that is required for the construction of the project. We are also incentivizing developers by reducing this rate to 14% in case the project complies with the initially agreed business plan. And we look at it on a dynamic quarter-by-quarter basis. So at the start of every quarter, we'll have a look at the project performance in the last quarter. And if the project has met the initial business plan in terms of collections, receivables, sales, and so on, the interest rate for the next quarter gets reduced to 14%. So over a project life cycle, in fact, the cost of the funds will be anywhere between 14 to 15%. Given the conservative nature of our projections, we expect most projects to meet those kind of timelines. And therefore, the funding will be about 14% and not 15%, or will be closer to 14% than to 15%. Anything else that I could, yeah. So we are investing in the form of NCDs. We provide loans into the companies in the form of NCDs. So we invest in the form of NCDs. And I think as a closing line, before I take questions, I want to emphasize that what makes us different and what makes this fund different is that no other fund promises or targets to complete a project the moment it decides to provide funding for that project. So we will not be relying on, there won't be an overt reliance on receivables, on sales, on collections, and so on. We aim to provide all weatherproof funding that will be available to complete the project. And therefore, we believe that even in this kind of a scenario, our funding works because we have provided for enough buffers in the construction period, and because we have been very conservative in our sales price, in our sales velocity, in our receivable collections, and other assumptions.
Irfan, before I come back to the question and other things, just wanted to take your view initially. What's your view on the real estate prior to COVID and after the COVID? Is the view changed about this sector, and how do you view this sector first of all, and then we will take down to all the, because you can see that number of questions that are coming. But what's your overall take on this industry?
So the good, bad, and ugly thing is the situation was good quite some time ago.
Yeah.
It was bad in the recent past. It might be ugly in the near future.
So how do you think that this ugliness of this positiveness of the project, which you consider that the net worth positive project, you will consider that way? And given that whatever the market estimate says that the further prices may drop down. So in case if you have considered the receivables also, that receivables again, how do you value that receivables? Because in case if the finished inventory is going to be reduced, 10-20% price correction is going to be expected, then how are you going to view this positive net worth project given the industry next 1 year down the line?
So if the project is inherently profitable, I think this will be another, maybe an extended period, but a period of liquidity rather than profitability issues, right? If the cover is sufficient, the project should still be profitable, even if there is a 10-20% price correction.
Okay.
So in any case, we look at very, very conservative assumptions. In most cases that we are funding right now, we are looking at zero sales happening over the next 1.5 years or so. So we are hoping implicitly that therefore this situation will unwind. Life will come back to a normal, maybe in 1.5 years or so. If any one of us has a view that, that the current situation is going to continue forever, and therefore our projections have to be done that way, and, you need to find a project which is profitable that way, that is impossible, right? We cannot take that pessimistic, that dark a view, and we are not doing that. We are giving time the ability to heal, and therefore we are building in more buffers in terms of timeline for project construction to happen, for receivables to come in, for sales to happen. We were in any case assuming the price line to be flat. So maybe we'll get a little more conservative there. So we were assuming it to be flat to the extent that in most cases we are looking at the price projections for internally determining the funding requirements as the significant price achieved based on the sales MIS is, let's say, 3,000, and we are looking at 3,000 to be the price achievable even when the project is completed 2 years down the line, and even as sales happen for the next 2-3 years. So how conservative is that? It's hard to push that down any further without having a reasonable justification for it.
So Irfan, as you have rightly pointed out, that there is some social angle also involved with it, and you are considering a 15% IRR return in case if the project is able to recover the principal, or it is able to pay the principal with 8-10% of your 8 to 10% of the return. and with number of home buyers, might be it is an affordable housing project with the number of home buyers might be exceeding around 800 to 1000 crore. So is the return expectation with your social objective both can be compromised little bit there? Or in case if I can repeat the question for you.
So we are already at 15%, and I've told you that we've effectively reduced it to 14%, right? So that's one thing. I think what's far more important is look at the nature of funding we are providing. The fact that there is no principal repayment, there is no interest payment that is to happen over the next maybe 1, 2, or 3 years, as long as it takes to complete the project. Right?
Correct.
I think that is far more important than the 15% or the 14%. The 15 or 14% is important because we want investors, we want the scale of this fund to increase going ahead. Right? So if it does not make an investment sense for investors, our ability to scale up the fund will get limited. So the best social impact comes in when the financial returns are also considered. And that's what we are doing here.
Again, Irfan, that you have already mentioned in my earlier conversation with you that again, what I could get from the website about your fund is that all NCLT projects, if it is referred to an NCLT or to all the projects which are NPA related cases, what is your view on the NCLT?
To try and create maximum impact in the minimum possible pace of time. So deals that were looking complicated, deals that we knew would stretch out a bit, we put them on a back burner. We instead looked at deals that were again, the expression being used was the maximum bang for the buck, right? So with small amounts of committed capital, if we could reach out to solving the problems of a large number of home buyers, those were the kind of deals that we targeted in the first round. And let me tell you, that was in the first maybe 5-10 deals only. So during that time, we in fact very clearly told people who where the entity doing the development was in the form of a partnership firm, that we will not look at it right now. The situation today is that we have told those entities as well that we are looking, there are several deals where we are looking at funding, where we have got initial approval also, which are currently partnership firms. The solution to that is it needs to be converted to a private limited company. And we are ensuring that there is no time lag in the process because we are using that time to complete the other diligence work and to get the other approvals in place.
Okay.
So what you said might have been true in the first month or so, but not beyond that.
So now we are, I will not say that we are agnostic to anything, but we are absolutely looking at all the proprietorship deal, partnership deal, apart from the NCLT and all the NPA related cases also. In case
in fact, I can specifically tell you that we want to see far more NCLT cases right now than we've seen so far.
Wow, that's a very, very good news, and also a heartening news for at least 400 participants who are here to listen that.
Yeah. So we would want the interim resolution professional to refer cases to us. Once things have entered NCLT, the picture is far more clearer.
Again, Irfan, since we also have an IP and we are working on several of the real estate resolution cases, some of the things that we also come across, it is the home buyer which is asking for a refund right now into the cases. How do you deal with the home buyer refund cases? Do you consider that refund while considering the cost of project and means of finance? कि हमको इतना पैसा वापस देना पड़ेगा उन party को? How do you consider that refund? Whatever there are some home buyers which are insisting कि मेरे को मेरे पैसे वापस दे दो sir. So how do you deal with that particular situation or to that impact?
So see, there are two risks that we as a fund deal with. One is the completion risk, and the other is getting our money back.
Correct, sir.
The completion risk is in control to a very large extent because of the funding that we have and the funding that we are making available to the company based on the extremely conservative assumptions. But there is a black hole here in the form of what kind of RERA penalties, what kind of refunds might come in. So what we do is in our initial diligence, we try and estimate that. We estimate, in the worst case, what will be the total RERA penalties that might be due. So we take considerable time and effort to try and estimate that. We estimate that according to jurisdictions because there are different ways in which they are treated in different jurisdictions. And then we provide for a portion of that. We also look at another way of dealing with this problem. If we come in to do the funding, we cannot get distracted. The funding cannot get diverted for penalties, interest payments, and so on. So we also look at some kind of affirmative concurrence from the existing home buyers in the project. So we reach out to the home buyers, or that at least that's the strategy. Explain to them that we are coming in to complete the project, and think of it of how any individual would react, where money has been stuck, project has been stuck for X number of years, and suddenly someone from somewhere is reaching out to you and saying that we can complete the project if you agree to a new completion date, if you agree to a new timeline for the project.
That's correct, but it means that you will try to convince the existing home buyer to stay put into the project. This is in case I'm just asking for a situation where out of 10-20% of the home buyers is asking for a refund, and it turns out to approximately 40-50 crore to a project size as such. So how do we deal with that type of a situation, Irfan?
So that will be a bad situation. So we can deal with sporadic cases of refunds, right? We can make a case out that there is no case for a refund right now because the situation has changed completely. But our money is not to provide refunds to home buyers. Our money is not to repay creditors in the project. Our money is not for developers. Our money is to help the large majority of home buyers. So, nothing that a small minority does should affect the interest of the project as a whole.
I agree. Again, coming down to this NCLT and this issue again, in case if any resolution plan is being submitted by any of the new builder into the project, and that new builder resolution plan is approved, and that new builder comes to you for a funding for that stress project. So is there any contribution or that promoter contribution will you insist for that new builder who is submitted? So it means any of the new builder can submit a resolution plan. Suppose if he has submitted that 100 crores would be required to complete a stalled project, and his resolution plan is accepted. So your fund is ready to fund that 100 crore. It means he will only come like a PMC type of a company.
So we will obviously look at the credentials of the new developer.
Correct.
Right. So it can't be someone who's never done development before and is now taking on a project which already has a stressed history. So if it's a new developer, there has to be a change in both the development team as well as the look and the perception of the project, right?
Correct.
He
comes with his own brand, or he comes with his own specifications and other things.
And then we'll factor in those additional costs and see if the project is net worth profitable.
Correct.
And if it is, we would be very interested in doing this funding.
So just for all the 400 participants who are here, so this is absolutely a good opportunity for all the builders whoever are present here, for all the good and reputed developers whoever are present here, that in case if you go and bid in any of the resolution plan, you go and bid for any of the stalled projects. So this is where a fund is there which is ready to back you up for, say, for all the past credentials that you bring on the project. Now coming back to this completion criteria of 30% wala criteria, Irfan bhai, so Irfan, whatever that is there are a lot of ambiguities about this 30% completion criteria. 30% completion criteria, as I could understand, it is on to the construction cost, whatever is the construction cost that need to be expended in this project. This, if the 100 rupees is going to be spent in the construction of the project, if 30 rupiah or that percentage of that amount is spent in that construction, you will take it as the eligibility criteria into the project.
So let me just be extremely clear about it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Rather than telling you what is included in construction cost, let me tell you what is not included.
Correct.
That is a much shorter list. So all kinds of penalties, all kinds of interest payments are to be excluded. All other payments are to be included in determining how much cost has been spent on the project. And by all, we mean land cost, construction cost, architect fees, marketing fees, brokerage, approvals, licenses, FSI, everything. That's why I defined it by exclusion. Other than penalties and interest payments, all costs will be considered as project cost.
So I will just give them a number. Suppose if land and approval cost is 100 rupees, Irfan, and construction cost is around 50 rupees. It means 150 rupees is the project cost.
Yeah.
And the promoter has spent 75 rupees into the land and approval cost. It means 25 rupees in the land and approval is spending, and entire 50 rupees of the construction cost is spending. So whether it will qualify under your criteria?
So if my maths is correct, that project is 50% completed.
50% completed because
yes.
It has spent 50%, because he has spent 70, but the entire money has gone into the land payment of the project.
So understand, we build this criteria to avoid any kind of ambiguities, right? Land might be a very important part of the project cost in some places. It might not be a very important part of the project cost in other places. Physical construction is not a good gauge because you could have several towers. One tower could be 90% completed and another tower could be 10% completed. So all we are saying is, as long as the project is 30% completed in terms of project cost, which are defined as all costs excluding penalties and interest payments, and there is a home buyer element involved, then the project qualifies.
Sir, as far as I could understand that from the fund, that you were clear from the fund objective was that the fund would be utilized for the construction activity. So whether payment of the land use can also be considered as the part of the payment or this fund end use?
So absolutely. We have defined that as being any project related payment is defined as a part of construction cost. And the only exclusions are penalties and interest payments.
What about the township project, Irfan? Whether in case if the affordability definition or the mid-housing definition that in case if I'm in the major metros, just for the convenience of all the person who is present here, I suppose, Irfan, that the same affordability definition or that mid-housing that price criteria of Mumbai market, it has to be less than rupees 2 crore, and for 1.5 crore for NCR, Chennai, Kolkata, Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Ahmedabad, and for rest of the India it is 1 crore. Is that definition still prevalent, or is there any change in that definition?
That definition applies across India.
That definition applies across India. Suppose so in case this definition, so this township project will also qualify. So all this plotted development will also qualify under your fund.
Yeah. So plotted developments also qualify, and townships also qualify. So what we do in plotted development specifically is we try and build the apartment equivalent in terms of cost. So we look at the land cost, and then we do what is the construction possible on that plot, and therefore what is the land plus construction cost. And if that is less than the 2 crore, 1.5 crore and 1 crore, then that qualifies.
So it means in case if the plot is 1 crore, and in case if you think that whatever is the FSI available there, so house construction might take around 40-50 lakhs. So it means if it is an NCR, so the construction and the plot will not be more than 1.5 crore. So that you will consider it.
Absolutely.
So again, sir, ये तो मकान बनाने की बात है सर. कोई उसके अंदर कैसे मकान बनाएगा सर? The construction cost can vary from person to person. So how do you define that construction cost, sir?
So we take a reasonable number, which is not an extreme on either side. We will, we are working with a large number of agencies. We can look at projects in the immediate vicinity and arrive at a reasonably educated guess. And understand this, we are not trying to exclude the project. We are trying to include the project.
So earlier, Irfan, what I could understand, in case if it is a township project, there are 10 buildings which are to be constructed, out of which the work has only started in approximately around 3 building, and out of this 7 building, nothing has been started there as such. So whether the entire this 10 building project will be considered, or you will only take this 3 building which is partially constructed part of it?
So we'll look only at the 3 buildings which are partially constructed. We'll also look at any other building which is where, construction maybe has not progressed, but which has launched, which was possible in the pre-RERA era. So as long as there's a home buyer element involved in a particular building, we'll look at it. And then as part of deal structuring, we'll look at, if it's possible that instead of doing construction of all 10 buildings, we can accommodate all the home buyers in maybe 5 buildings, right? We'll look at that. We'll also look at the project might not be profitable if you look at just 5 buildings.
Absolutely correct.
It might get profitable if you consider 1 more building. And therefore, we'll look at that 1 more building so that we can provide the relief to the first 5 buildings in the process.
So it means you will only take up to the net worth positive project. So in case if you're doing a cumulatively math, you will say keep on adding 1 more tower to see whether whenever it becomes a positive net worth project, you will stop funding up to that building.
So there is a judgment call here. We will, we will be looking at how many home buyers are involved, in which units are they housed, how many units how many structures do we need to take to keep the project cost within a manageable proportion, what stage the project is at, and so on. So several different floating factors that we'll consider together in deciding what portion of the project. So the idea is, it is easy to say no. It is hard to decide how do you say yes to a particular project. And we will do the hard work for you for that.
Sir, after considering, suppose if the land is owned by me, which is being given to me 40-50 years before which I am owning the land right now. So how do you consider the project cost completion methodology with that 30% wala criteria ke andar, if you consider the land cost which is owned by me, but land is 50 years old, which is lying with me in my books of account. So whether will you value the land at market price as on date, or because there is no book value as such, or how do you value that land price?
So I honestly don't have an answer for you. We have not got a situation like that yet.
So there is a question for that. So I just wanted to answer that.
So we have not got a situation for that like that yet. We'll try and work out something.
Okay, fantastic, sir. Sir,
so my simply off the cuff thought is, it would not be fair to value the land at historical cost.
Correct,
we'll see of what comparable market equivalent we can take, and we will inform our IC that we are taking this judgment call and take approval for that.
Sir, suppose in case if the project itself is not net worth positive, but builder is saying ki, sir, there is some other completed units which are there, or some other collaterals, security also which is willing to offer to you, that we can also dispose it of, or some sort of extra comfort which is he's willing to walk that extra mile. Whether your fund will also walk that extra mile in also comparing both the estimations together, or you will only look at the positive net worth only for the particular project.
So absolutely, we will look at it, cover, and then we look at security cover. When we talk of cash flow cover, we talk of everything that meets the definitions that we have.
Correct.
In addition to that, if that is low, if that is not complete, we'll look at additional security cover, and that additional security cover could be in any form. So again, it's there is no binary process here. It's a judgment call. It's a trade-off between the quality of the cash flows that you have, the cover you have, the quality of the asset that you are getting as a additional collateral, and so on.
Just coming back again to that RERA question, sir, there are a lot of states where the RERA is not applicable, sir, or they have got their particular registration, and the builder is saying, sir, in case if the RERA says that you have to comply with 5 different things, although my state is saying out of the 5, you need to comply with only these 3 things together. For the remaining 2, I will comply it for you specifically. I understand that, sir, RERA you will only consider as a RERA registered project. But in case in some of the states where RERA is not registered, sir, how as a citizen of my country, why I should be barred from that in case if that is not within my own hand?
So see, I'm bound by the mandate we have, by the mandate on which we've raised funds. The mandate clearly says that it's a RERA registered project, right? And I cannot give you an answer which says, no, we'll do projects which are not RERA registered. So that's a very binary criteria we have. It's either a RERA registered project or not. The only relaxation we've done, where we could do, and therefore we've done, is in some other states where there are projects which are not RERA registered. We have told them to get RERA registration, and we've also simultaneously started taking it through our approval process. So that, within a month, within 45 days, by the time we complete our process, they complete the RERA registration. But apart from that, no, we cannot, our fund mandate does not allow us to offer any relaxation.
Irfan, we as a builder are not asking for any of the relaxation, but we are asking, suppose for a RERA, there are 5 criteria that need to be mentioned.
Yeah.
I am saying that in my state, as per, suppose if I am speaking specifically about West Bengal or for any other state as such, out of the 5, 3 are being covered under my state legislation, which we call as HERA or whatever is that local RERA. Remaining 2, I am as a builder is ready to comply for you. So whatever is this, sir, you don't go by the word RERA registration, sir. Whatever is the significance that you are asking me, कि तुमको ये 5 चीजें करनी पड़ेगी. मैं आपको ये बोल रहा हूँ कि सर मैं वो 5 चीजें whatever is required for RERA to be done, I am ready to comply with it. और मेरे हाथ में नहीं है सर वो RERA HERA करना. But what is in my hand is to comply with all the 5 conditions which is required for RERA to do, Irfan.
Sure. So I can understand where this is coming from, but our mandate is limited, right? Our mandate specifically says that anything above 2 crores in Mumbai cannot be considered. I have no leeway on that. I may or may not like a project, but if it's more than 2 crores, I cannot consider it. Likewise, if it's not RERA registered, I cannot consider it.
Sir, again,
don't ask me for something that I cannot give you.
Sir, I'm just asking a last question towards it, sir.
Sure.
Don't you think as a democracy, sir, as a home buyer sir, I'm as a home buyer, sir, how does it differentiate because I pay the same income tax if I'm staying in all the states of India, sir. And I'm just giving it a thought for you. I'm not asking for you to just to deliberate on that part further, but I'm just requesting that in case we can just look at, in case if I'm not a RERA registered, but if any builder or any of the home buyer is willing to be considered, that remaining 2, whatever is the 5 conditions that are to be required, this is our humble request to you. If that can be considered, I suppose we can do a far better objective of this thing that can be done. I would not.
So my mandate is limited to what is mentioned in our fund documents, and therefore we are bound by it. That's the most I can say about this.
Again, there are 2-3 things. What I could understand is that till now, until February, you have whatever your website says, that 540 crore is actually the project that you have already sanctioned, and there are which the residential projects which were getting cleared, and approximately around 14 projects of around 2,500 crore of
We are dependent on an external timeline for that, right? For every deal, we have to do 4 or 5 levels of diligence. So that is an external timeline that is not completely within our control. So we try and make it faster. We try and keep a control on it, but that's about it. So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
Two, the quality of the information that comes in from the developer is far more important in determining the timeline on how fast we can react and how fast we can take the proposal through. We have seen some developers take 15-20 days only to approve the diligence agency. This is after we have recommended a diligence agency, negotiated the scope of work, negotiated the terms, and so on. Getting their approval, getting them to provide information is where the biggest time factor comes in. Then the other bit is we are dependent on lenders to give their approval. And while some lenders work fast, some lenders don't. We are also dependent on, in some cases where we are looking at reaching out to home buyers. So how fast we can get through that process. But I think the single biggest factor, and which this audience needs to work on, which all of us need to understand, is that if we get information faster, if we get more clear answers to the kind of questions we ask, right, the proposal will go through faster. We have seen a deal timeline of about maybe 35 to 45 days.
Fantastic, sir.
In most cases.
So that's a very, very good timeline, given that the way that you have been constituted as a fund and the way that the due diligence happen. In case if it can happen within 1.5 months of time, I suppose I congratulate you on the timeline and the process that you have created, Irfan, and I really appreciate. And I can just say that we have the personal honor of working with Irfan and his team, and we are absolutely delighted to tell everybody that in terms of the quality, in terms of the due diligence, in terms of responsiveness, we never have any complaint about things. In spite of, like, we might be handling around 10-12 clients with your fund, and all of the clients are absolutely satisfied with the quality and also the timeline for responses, and also the responses which we get. This is also intelligent responses. We also can understand what is that you are seriously interested in understanding the project that you want to take it forward.
So we are not taking an academic interest. We want to do everything possible to take the deal to a completion at the earliest.
So what is about that? Again, the fund is 25,000 crore ka fund hai, sir. So is there any city specific limit that you have set? Is there any builder specific limit? Is there anything onto a project specific? What is the sweet spot of yours, and what excites you, Irfan?
So we are looking at deals across the spectrum. So that's also what makes us a different private equity fund. Most private equity funds have a sweet spot. We don't. So we are looking at deals from 5 crores to 400 crores in any one project. We are looking at funding up to 800 crores for any one developer. So we can do multiple deals with any developer.
So up to 800 crore per developer. It means in case if the developer has got 10, 12 projects, so you can do at maximum 800 crore that you can lend to a developer.
Yes. Every project has to meet all the criteria.
It means it is a developer group, like I have seen that there are 2-3 developers combining and doing a project together. So how do you do, how will you define that?
So again, that is a situation we've not we'll find a way out for that. But we've not reached a situation yet where we've possibly exhausted the limit for any particular developer, and then we need to look at those issues. But even in that case, we will generally look at the developer who's in the lead.
Okay. So what I could understand is that 800 crore developer cap, 400 crore, it is the project size cap. And what is the minimum size?
So no minimum. But given that funding cost for diligence and deal costs are generally in the region of 25 to 35 lakhs in most cases. So it just does not make sense if the deal size is, it might make some sense if it's 5 crores. Generally, we are encouraging deals above 10 crores. But if it's a developer who's seeking 5 crores of funding and is willing to foot the deal cost, we are okay with it.
What about the country expansion, sir? We have Tier 1. Are you evaluating any deals? Have you looked at any deals which are in?
So yes, we are looking at deals across the country, but the nature of the deal flow reflects the underlying market. So when we did a market study, we found out that most of the stuck projects are in the large metros. 40% are in NCR, 25% are in Mumbai. 85% of all the stuck projects are in the top 7, top 8 metro cities of India. So the deal flow also is now large enough, and therefore it reflects the underlying market. So we are getting those kind of, if we segregate in terms of both approved deals that we've got approvals, as well as in the deals that where we've got the initial information, it more or less reflects the market. We are also seeing, and therefore we are seeing some deals, scattered deals from across the country. So Bhopal, Jaipur, Rewari, Trichy, Nagpur, Nasik,
all these
we are getting to see projects. Yes.
Okay.
So because we have an online access process, anyone can send us deals through the website. So I guess physical distance does not matter.
So you told Irfan that it is not only for the stalled project that we sent that can come to you. It is also the new builder also can come and approach you for the construction finance.
Yeah. So even if a project is not stalled yet, but there are apprehensions, or it's clear that that with the repayment obligations that are coming up with the current sales velocity, the cash flow that is available for construction is just not there, and therefore the project is going to be stalled, then we can look at those projects also.
So there can be a new project which I have recently launched. Will you look at those projects?
As long as it meets the 30% criteria and is stalled and is RERA registered, yes.
Sir, stalled तो आपने कहा कि वो तो sir stalled it is a new project.
Stalled or likely to be stalled, both.
वो तो पैसे नहीं मिलेंगे तो stalled हो जाएंगे बाद में, sir.
Yes, sir. Jyoti, I'm just wondering, what do you mean by a new project? Because
new project means I have recently launched the project and my land cost is more than, as I told you, कि land cost 100 रुपए का है, construction cost 50 रुपए का है, मैंने 75 रुपए land वाले को दे चुके हैं. So it means so definitely, so it is a new project, which is a new recently launched project.
What we look for is, on a quantitative basis, if the 30% criteria is met.
Correct.
and the project has been launched.
It is a
And
RERA
there are-
registered.
No. So it's important that there are home buyers involved.
Sir, we have launched the project, so there are home buyers involved.
So then we can look at it.
Okay, now what is the composition? There are some state, there is somewhere which we also get mixed land use license also there between the residential and commercial. So how do you differentiate that into a mixed land project?
So as long as
mixed use
90% of the project we are financing
meets your criteria,
we are okay with it.
Sir, I can tell that 90% of your money or 100% of your money will be used only in the residential area, and the remaining or the commercial or the retail area, you don't fund it. I will do it on my own. How do you differentiate that in case if I only bring the cost of project and means of finance only for the residential part of it?
So we, so as long as there was a question that I got distracted with, so the criteria is 90% of the project should meet the affordable and mid-income criteria. And if there is, let's say, a commercial component, there is a retail component, we see how to deal with it so that it falls within the 10%. And the various strategies we use is, let's say it is a retail component, but it's in a separate building.
Yeah.
So we can exclude that building.
Yes.
In which case 100% or close to 100% is the affordable and mid-income, and therefore we can do it. We can look at it, right? So if there is even if it's more than, let's say, 10% in the same structure. So let's say there is a building where the first 2 floors are retail, and the retail area is 15% of the total project area, right? So rather than saying no, what we do is we try and create an escrow for, let's say, 5% of the construction costs, right? And the balance we look at. So we can then look at the rest of the project. So the idea is always to come up with a way of looking at a project rather than saying no.
Again, what about the residential portion in SEZ, industrial park, logistic park? Can you just carve out that residential project on only the residential portion in all this SEZ and logistic park?
So understand this, all this confusion comes because of the fact that we've said it's a RERA registered project. So while we are looking at a RERA registered project, we are not confined by the boundaries of that RERA registration. So we could look at a portion of a RERA registered project and we could do it. So we could look at just the residential portion in a township, or just the residential portion in a warehousing project, whatever.
What about the completed project in case if I've received the OC and but then also in case if the inventory is not moving along?
So our project is for completion of stalled projects. If the project is completed, we do not have the funds for it.
In case if only 2-3% of the funding is required for the complete, or it is a very, very negligible amount is required for completion of the project, will you be stepping into this?
So if it is money required for completion of the project, we would definitely be stepping in.
So it means before the OC, I can say before I've received the OC of the project, I can definitely approach you for the funding in case if the project required.
And the story should be that money is required. There are some things left to be completed. There is finishing left to be done. There is infrastructure left to be provided. And after that is completed, the project will get complete. Will get an OC and home buyers can move in. So yes, we can look at it.
Now, again, coming back to the funding and the banking side of it, what is the tenure of the loan that you look at? How is the repayment being done? How is the interest being taken? Can you just throw some light on that? How is that thing happening?
Typically, we look at 4 or 5 year funding. Our funding is in the form of NCDs, which are on a pay when able basis. There is no repayment obligation that commences immediately. All the money is used for construction. I've already mentioned that we try and build some cash flows, allow some cash flows to waterfall to the underlying lenders. We look at completing the project in, it varies on a case-by-case basis, right? So we've looked at projects which are 90% complete. We've looked at projects which are 30% complete. So depending on that, the project completion timeline can be anywhere between 6 to 9 months. It could be 3-4 years, 3 years also. So we look at both. We look at all kinds of projects. We provide a timeline for completion of the project. And thereafter, depending on where the project is, what kind of sales velocity we can assume, we make conservative assumptions and provide for another 3 years maybe for return of capital and our IRR.
Fantastic, sir. So, sir, in Bombay, there is a new concept of RWA coming up and also developing the project. If you have heard that, all these, so there. So, what is your take on this? Whether those projects, which is whether the RWA comes and asks you for the funding, whether will you fund that project?
So there has to be an SPV or a project holding company.
Okay.
Right. That project company will be issuing the debentures. We will be subscribing to the debentures. So those kind of prerequisites should be there. Then we should know who's going to do the development work. If there are approvals to be received, if there is construction to be completed, who's taking responsibility? It can't be a diffused responsibility. We need to be able to crystallize, that these are this. Then
so there are
in every project.
Sir, I just want to stop you for it. So there is a project monitoring agency, or there is appointed by the RWA or that group of associations of that person. They have appointed a reputed agency to look after the entire aspect. But you can always come back and say, since that agency doesn't have a skin in the game, whether that agency taking the entire responsibility will meet your criteria.
No, it doesn't. Because a PMC agency is a PMC agency and a developer is a developer, right? A PMC does not replace a developer. We look at PMCs in terms of monitoring projects. But the ability of a PMC to completely deliver a project is something that we need to establish on a case-by-case basis. We will in fact begin with the assumption that they will not be able to replace a developer.
So it is the PMC responsibility to bring the developer also might be to complete a project, or it is a developer, or it is basically a contractor to bring the project.
In that case, what we always say is come to us when the story is complete.
In case if the story is complete.
The RWA appoints a PMC, the PMC identifies a developer, there is a holding company for the project. And then either the RWA or the developer or the PMC company approaches us for funding, and we can look at it.
So what about the SRA projects? So SRA qualifies under your criteria?
Absolutely.
So there the application that the land cannot be mortgaged and other things that doesn't bother you in terms of the funding as such which is there.
So that is a aspect of the deal that we consider, and we look at those deals also.
So as far as I could understand, the fund has a mandate that you need to have a first charge on the cash flow and also the first charge onto the project, their assets, asset class. So what about the existing lender? Are you compromising a little bit with the existing lender, or you still the super boss in the project?
So we are saying that we are last mile funders. Because no one else is providing funding, we are coming and providing the funding. The nice thing that has happened in so many cases when we decide that we are providing the funding, the lender who was otherwise not willing to come steps ahead and says that, no, I will do it.
That's a best case scenario.
So that's good. It's not like we are competing with them, right? Ultimately, a home buyer has benefited in the process, and therefore half our objective is met even with zero capital deployed.
Fantastic.
So that's not an issue. What we do want the underlying lender to appreciate is there are two scenarios possible. The first scenario is the current scenario, where the project is not progressing, there is no funding available, right? And you can let status quo continue forever.
Yeah.
And the second scenario is where this fund is coming in and saying, we will complete the construction. Now, you have to decide what's better for the project, for the home buyers, and for your bottom line. There have to be some, intelligent trade-offs that you need to make in the process. You cannot look at one aspect of the equation only.
So another question which I have received, that the project is under NPA, and that institution or the bank has sold that account to an ARC.
Yeah.
Now ARC is ready to come as a second charge for you.
Yeah.
And the promoter name, it is in the defaulter list. It has got all the acrylic because since the account is NPA and other thing which is there. So whether your fund can come in and step in with all the criteria fulfilled in terms, you can give you the priority charge and other things, and with all the promoter track record also, although just because of this account is an NPA, definitely the bank has referred him to all these civil and other things.
So we are looking at several projects from ARCs, several projects.
So that can also be considered as a good project per se as such.
So all that we are interested in knowing is who's going to be the developer. Either the existing developer is going to develop the project, and therefore whether he has a team to do it or not, or if some other developer is being appointed, and therefore we can look at it. And we are looking at it. We are looking at very many cases from ARC companies.
Sir, I suppose, sir, we have got hundreds of questions, sir, and we have already exceeded time. I will just try to take some of the questions one by one, whatever maximum I can take it in 5-7 minutes. So I will take a rapid fire question right now, Irfan Bhai. In case where authorities like Noida or the Greater Noida, most of the stalled or likely to be stalled project would have significant penalties due to the authorities. How do you factor the penalties which are levied by the authorities in those cases? Because those are treated as a part of the land cost. But definitely, if you get into detail, more bifurcation, it includes the land cost plus the penalty.
So we will have to look at on how the cash flows look after we factor in whatever penalties have already been awarded.
What about the phase-wise funding? This is an anonymous attendee who is asking that, like, I have completed first phase of the project, and also I require funding for the second phase and third phase. Still, the cash flow is managed. Rest of the phases, it doesn't require the funding. I suppose it is going to fulfill your criteria.
Absolutely.
What about the project management question and the evaluation criteria, whatever that you have told? Can you just elaborate on those due diligence process and other things, whether it is the legal and the evaluation which we generally understand in the process, or there is something much more beyond it?
No. So we do all types of diligence, right? We do legal diligence, financial diligence, technical diligence, valuation, forensic, ESG. So all 5 or 6 kind of diligences are done in every deal.
What is the minimum security, as you told that it has to be cash flow positive, and you also require a security that there has to be a security cover, there has to be a cash flow cover for you to look at the project. So what is the minimum cash flow cover and what is the minimum security cover that you have in mind?
So there is no hard and fast rule. It depends on the nature of the project, the quality of the cash flows, the stage the project is in. So see, understand this. I mean, just to give you a quick example, a project that is 90% complete or 95% complete, a cash flow cover of 1.1 is more than enough. A project which is 30% complete, a cash flow cover of 1.4 is not enough. Right? So it will vary. There is no hard and fast rule. It's an investment call that we need to do.
What is there any prepayment charges also which your fund levies in case if we cannot do that?
No, there are no prepayment charges.
So is there any processing fee in the starting point?
No processing fees.
So there is no processing fee. There is no prepayment. So I can just walk in and I can go out at any point of time.
Yes, you can.
Your fund.
Yes.
But sir, it is an NCD. So all the formalities of NCD need to be complied with before, I suppose that can be.
So that is done by the lawyers. I mean, that is not a big deal at all.
So in case if the borrower and the lender agree, definitely we can look at all these things. So as you told that the cost of due diligence and everything cost around 35 to 40 lakhs of rupees. So after the preliminary investigation, after the preliminary thing that you permission to go ahead, which is there. So this 30 to 40 lakhs, how many projects have you seen till date that after you have given an initial permission to go and the project finally has not taken the project has not got the money ultimately? What is the ratio in that way?
So we have said no to 3 deals.
After you have said the preliminary
after the preliminary this.
What can be the reasons for those?
So due diligence established some issues that were just not that we just could not resolve. Right. So that is one big reason.
Sir,
So
housing.
normally what happens in every due diligence process, there are things that come up, right? The revenue decreases, the cost increase, there are approvals that are not in place, etc., etc. And our work is to try and find mechanisms to resolve that, so that the risk is mitigated and the funding still happens. In these three cases, we could not do it.
Sir, if the plot is been allotted by the government in some of the cases, and in also some of the projects where government is also the equity shareholder also into the projects there. So how do you look at those projects, sir? If it is, and also those projects where the housing plot is allotted for the government employees only, and the government has allotted those projects there.
So as long as there's a sale component,
okay,
right, we
but
can look
sale
at
it
it.
is on, but sir, sale is to a particular community. Scale is not like that कि आप किसी को भी जाके माल नहीं बेच सकते हैं. Well, government has specified that you can sell it to this particular class of people.
So on the basis of the bare information you've given me so far, I don't see why we should not be able to do it.
Okay. Just a second, sir. I suppose it is already 5:15. We can only take it, sir. Any of the last question that you think that the builders should be wary of, or what we should do as a builder? I just wanted to take a last opinion of yours, that you have seen the real estate so closely, Irfan. Matlab, I don't think, do you think this is the worst time ever for the builder?
So this is a very difficult time, but it is not just the developer, right? It's a very difficult time for a country as a whole, for the world economy, and so on. For us as a country also, this is a very difficult time, and therefore real estate is going through a very difficult time. But it's not just the real estate sector. If you look around, airlines are Absolutely. In a no better position. If your real estate was managing mass media kind of this, like cinema halls and all that, again, it's a bad situation to be in. I think as a country, we've bounced back far more often than we've been beaten down, right? So we hopefully we should be able to get there, right?
So what is your last piece of advice for the builders as on date?
Sorry, I'm not, so I might be old enough, but I'm not wise enough to advise people on how to do their business.
But just for your experience, sir, what we should do, whether we should go and launch new projects, or whether this is the right time, not the right time to launch new projects, or how to complete the projects, or whether the prices need to be reduced, as sir, every big person come and give some advice. So I thought, sir, let us take some advice.
So that's the reason I will not give advice. I'll tell you what I would have done.
Yes, sir, that would be better, Irfan.
I'm a firm believer in cash is king.
Correct.
The ability to monetize is far more important than the quantum of money that is generated. So if it means getting a price correction but improving velocity is far more important than the price, right? But I understand this. You guys understand this as much as a lot more than I do. So if it is possible, I'm sure you will do it. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. It's a question of time. Time is a good healer, and therefore this is a difficult phase that at some point in time we'll come out of.
Irfan, I don't have words to thank you for this absolutely informative, and I thoroughly enjoyed this 1 hour 20 minutes of chatting with you. Matlab, it was absolutely so informative, something such nicely thing that has come out of your heart, and you were so open and frank together.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Sir, approximately around 400 people has come and joined this webinar for you, and you can look at the type of the wonderful messages that I have received. We have received more than 100 question answers and approximately around 212 chat boxes